What does DNA demonstrate? Well, hello, it's Calvin Smith here, and welcome to Creation Basics, where our goal is to make God's creation part of your everyday conversation. Now, today's question is, what does DNA demonstrate? Well, pretend I had a piece of chalk here and a blackboard, and I wrote a message. Hi, my name is Cal. Now, if I asked you, where did the information come from? Would you say it came from the chalk? I mean, if I were to rub off the chalk here, rub the message off the board and show you the chalk in my hand, would you say there's any information in chalk? No. Did the information originate from the chalk then? No. It originated in my mind, and the message I wanted to convey was carried by the chalk because of the very specific arrangement I'd made. And a tip for later, it could only be translated by someone who already knew the code I was using, English written. But what does this have to do with creation? Well, most atheistic evolutionists are committed to a naturalistic, materialistic origin of life to explain how they supposedly got here without God. And if that worldview is true, then there shouldn't be any non-material quantity to the universe. However, the study of biology is largely a study of information science because all living things contain vast libraries of coded genetic information in their DNA. Now, if the origin of life occurred naturalistically, as an evolutionist would believe, and all life contains coded genetic information, then some kind of code system must have originated by chance with no outside intelligence. But have we ever observed code systems originating by chance? No. As my chalk analogy demonstrates, the origin of information is non-material. It is a metaphysical entity. It's only ever been observed to be derived from an intelligent source. Now, obviously, because of the arrangement, information was carried on the chalk, but calcium carbonate has no inherent, information content. Similarly, DNA is made up of sugar, phosphates, and bases, but those components don't contain the information. The arrangement of it does. Okay, so let's think this through then. Information is one, it's metaphysical. It's not derived from the matter, it's carried on. And two, it's only ever been observed to be created by intelligence. So, from what we've observed in science, the evidence in biology and microbiology is not supporting the atheistic worldview. This is a huge scientific and philosophical challenge to naturalistic evolution, and trying to redefine what information is in an attempt to wiggle out of it, it doesn't really work. The information systems in living things are incredibly similar to functionality to what we see in computer programming, for instance, today. Except even the simplest living things, data processing is vastly more complex than anything that we've created yet. All living things operate and replicate using vast quantities of coded information which is stored, read, transcribed, and translated. Aside from the fact that no one has observed a code system spontaneously generating, it's even beyond our imagination to concoct a story of how matter could formulate a code. And all of these processes shout out purposeful, intelligent, sophisticated programming, not blind, purposeless, naturalistic processes. But not only that, there's an even bigger problem that most people haven't thought through. Obviously, in any form of communication, Morse code, Braille, any spoken language, there has to be a transmitter and then a receiver that understands the specific code used, or else the communication is useless. I mean, for example, if I wrote in English and my audience only understood Latin, well, my message would be useless. You see, for naturalistic evolution to be true, not only must a code system have spontaneously generated, a translation device for that specific code must also have evolved through natural processes within a similar time frame for it even to be useful. And that would be absolutely miraculous, because in all of our experience, not only is a code system always the result of a mind, but the process of translation itself is another activity that can always be traced back to an intelligence. What's the chance for the exact translator to evolve that matched the exact code that supposedly evolved? What good is a code if there's nothing to understand it? What good are instructions if no one is receiving them? You see the problem? So what does DNA demonstrate? Well, it demonstrates that life itself, in all of its forms, is the result of an intelligent mind. And if that code we see inside life is the most sophisticated code we've ever seen, it's logical to conclude that it originated in the most intelligent mind we can imagine, the Creator God of the Bible, Jesus Christ. Hey folks, Calvin here. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, share the content, click the button, blah, blah, blah. I know, you've heard it so often, it's just annoying. But here's the thing. If you're enjoying this content and want other people to benefit from it as well, kind of think of it as donating to our Answers in Genesis Canada advertising campaign without having to spend a dime. We want to be good stewards of your support. And of course, advertising is very expensive. But with the algorithms set up the way they are, it's kind of like getting these platforms that are often quite unfriendly to Christian content to promote gospel outreach for free. And if you've been blessed by this content, understand the importance of biblical authority, and have the means, please consider giving a one-time gift or becoming one of our monthly supporters by clicking the link below. Stay blessed.